Just when you think the drama doesn't end, it might be coming back to your life. We got a lot to get to tonight here on the Locked On Texans Squad Show.
Stan Norfleet here. Welcome to the Locked On Texans Squad Show. More coaching staff changes. I thought that ship had sailed, but they're running out of people to blame over there at NRG. Did they get the right one? More to come here in just a second.
I like that perspective from Stan. Running out of people to blame. Essentially, it's on two people to get this ship together. That's the general manager, and that's the quarterback. 2026 will tell it all.
Yeehaw! It's time for the Texans Squad. Everything Houston Texans, every week. Bringing you the big hits, game-changing plays, and all the action straight from the Lone Star State. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Saddle up and squad up. It's the Texans Squad Show, starting now.
Welcome to the Locked On Texans Squad Show on a Thursday evening. Michael Connor, Stan Norfleet, and John Hickman, who is in Indianapolis for the NFL Combine. We've got a lot to get into tonight on the show because the Houston Texans keep giving us news to talk about. Fellas, we're just going to jump right into it. We're going to get to obviously a lot of CJ Stroud stuff here tonight. I do want to talk, because we didn't get to the other night, a little bit about the offensive line and what they're going to do, some of Caserio's comments from the other night. If we get a second to sprinkle in our quick thoughts on the Toro district, it being revealed, what it's going to look like, we'll do that as well. And I do have a little bit of a twist and turn to this for the 2027 draft, not the 2026 draft that I want to ask you guys about tonight as well. But the news of the day for the Houston Texans, fellas, is that Jerrod Johnson is out as quarterback coach of the Houston Texans. It is a, as they put it, mutual parting of the ways. We know that he got fired. We're not stupid. He got let go. The Texans will be, I don't even remember the guy's name at this point. I had it in front of me here.
Jerry Shasplinsky.
But there you go. He was here last year as an senior offensive assistant. He's been a quarterback coach in the past. Guess where? New England, Los Angeles. And he has a connection to all the guys here in Houston. He went to John Carroll. So, guys, what do we make of the news today that Jerrod Johnson is out and CJ Stroud has his second quarterback coach of his NFL career?
If you don't mind, I want to start. So the other day, we hear Nick Caserio say things like, when he talked about the quarterback situation, refuted the reports that he's going to go anywhere. He mentioned that he's going to be here for 2026, didn't go beyond. We talked about that. But one thing we didn't mention when Caserio talked about CJ Stroud was he said when the stock market is down, what does that mean? It's time to invest more, right? And so with that, I said, well, maybe Caserio's looking at the lack thereof from this last year and understanding that, hey, I got to get a better offensive line. I got to get a better run game. I got to upgrade the tight end position, which I think is very true. But also the investments that is going into your quarterback, maybe it was time to look elsewhere. And for me, when I look at Jerrod Johnson and Houston parting ways, also from what I was told, it was more so of Jerrod Johnson looking at the situation and saying, hey, you know what? The decision that y'all made with me to kind of bring me down to another level, not being the full-time quarterbacks coach, but more so in an assistant role, that's not what I want for my career right now. It's time for me to move around. And so Houston let him do that. Another caveat to that is the expectation was for Jerrod Johnson to find another job during the coaching cycle. Offensive coordinator positions were open throughout the league. Philly, you look at what was going on in Cleveland, so the Houston Texans could gracefully allow for him to get out the building. But getting back to my original point, I think this will be a good thing for the Houston Texans. And here's why, before I pass it off to Houston. Since the second half of 2024 and all of 2025, even Chris Sims pointed it out recently, from a mechanical standpoint, the lack of stepping into throws, throwing off the back foot, laying up passes, however you want to look at it. I think that directly points to what you're being coached to do and what you're not being coached out of bad tendencies. Jerrod Johnson is supposed to be that guy to coach your player, your quarterback, out of bad tendencies. That hasn't been the case. And for Houston, the lack of coaching bad tendencies out, that leads to multiple voices in the room on the offensive side of the ball that is struggling right now. So you can't afford to have multiple voices standing out. That happened in 2024 and 2023 with the offensive line with Chris Strauss and Cole Popovich. They move on and completely make Cole Popovich the head guy. What happens? In many ways, there is an improvement there. And so for 2026 and moving forward, I think Houston had to recognize, hey, this guy that CJ Stroud likes a lot, that's his guy, he's known since high school, he ain't working out. And he's not a fit for what the vision is for this offense. I support the decision for both parties to move on from each other.
Do you support it, Stan?
No, I don't. And I'll tell you why. Gerard Johnson, when CJ Stroud won Offensive Rookie of the Year and had one of the best touchdown interception ratios in the many people thought Gerard Johnson was in line to be an offensive coordinator. As John said there, he interviewed this offseason for coordinator positions. Many people thought, was he going to go back to his alma mater at College Station and be a part of that staff that came in a couple seasons ago? So if you're going to give him the blame, air quotes, for CJ showing some regression in his mechanics, I've already outlined on this show how 2025 CJ was in many cases better than 2024 and rivaling 2023 when you get to some of the advanced metrics. I'll spare the people that now. The bottom line is, if you're going to give a man some blame, you got to give that man some of the credit. I also am one that leans on, if you were going to do this, and if Gerard Johnson didn't fit, then why didn't you push him out the door when you pushed out your man's in Bobby Sloyd? Why wait another cycle? You bring in Shashplinski knowing that he has the desire and or the aptitude to be the quarterback's coach. So Gerard Johnson has been coaching this whole year with Shashplinski standing over his shoulder. How divisive does that get? I heard on local radio somebody bring up the idea, was it too many voices in the meeting room? Well, who's allowing that? Nick Caley should be delegating. When it comes to CJ Stroud's mechanics, that comes from one voice. That's me to Gerard Johnson to CJ. So I'm not accusing Shashplinski of doing this. I'm just commenting on what some of the thought processes are, that maybe there were too many voices in that room. Here's my last point. I
wholeheartedly agree with that, by the way, Stan.
That there were too many voices?
I do.
Or the thought.
We're pointing that out because if we just take a look back last season, what was the narrative around the offensive line? You have Chris Strauss saying in meetings one thing, you have Cole Popovich coaching another thing, or vice versa. And that led to an offensive line that, in many ways, they couldn't pick up a twist or a stunt or a blitz to save their life. They got better at that this year. And so I look at where this franchise is heading, guys. People going to hate us saying it, but it's very Patriot-esque. But the fact is,
it's the truth.
It's the truth. And the fact is, I believe, this is my own understanding, my own belief, my own perspective. I believe when the original coaching staff was assembled, the thought is, D'Amico, I know you're a defensive guy. I'm going to allow you to put your offensive staff together. But when this thing breaks down, I think for Nick Caserio, whose job is on the line, by the way, this is the last year of his contract, he has to do what he feels works best. And what works best is he got to go home in many ways. And that message is, I got to get the guys in here that I know was around when we won championships, that coached with high-level quarterbacks, that helped with development of guys like Jimmy Garoppolo and Jacoby Brissett, making both of those guys respectable quarterbacks in the NFL, whether as starters or backup. And we got to have one. I don't know if y'all are band guys, but one voice, one sound, right? For Houston in back-to-back off seasons, that has been a talking point.
First of all, we're talking.
MC, and then I want to add something.
I was just going to say, we've had the whole combine this week.
I'll add a few done.
We've had multiple opportunities now to hear from Caserio. Why hasn't anybody asked him about his contract status?
I wasn't out here.
I know you weren't, but I'm just wondering, like, why hasn't anybody done it? What are we doing? Somebody please ask the question. Ask the man. See what he says.
Yeah, fair point by you.
Yeah,
I'd like to add another layer. Actually, two. The first one is, I think we all have to be aware of the culture of the NFL. And Gerard Johnson being a former African American quarterback in his own right, and the connectivity to CJ going all the way back to high school. I think if we look at how shell-shocked CJ can be, you need somebody around that can be a soundboard for CJ personally, like a development coach. So as much as it's on field, there's a little bit like, how do you miss building, right? How do you engage with the how do you engage with when you're doing something they should be doing? How do you push back? I think Johnson was a good culture connector, being an African American man, you got an African American quarterback in CJ Stroud. I just wonder, was that a missed opportunity, and are they being a little bit premature here? CJ and Gerard Johnson are still on the same page from that dynamic. That's just something that doesn't get talked about on mainstream because it can be viewed as taboo. I'm not talking about excluding anybody. I'm like, you're also trying to win games here. So I don't care how crispy your mechanics are. If your offensive line is lean, you can't run the ball, and you're now one-dimensional, anybody is going to get skittish in the pocket. We've seen the very best of them do it. So I just have an issue with Gerard Johnson is to have him demoted.
Yeah, we're trying to milk it along the way. Yeah, pop out real quick, Stan, and see if you can reconnect real quick because it's getting a little choppy there on us. What do you think about what he was kind of getting at there, though, John?
I do want to look at what Stan mentioned about the metrics and Stroud being better in 24 being better in 25 compared to 24, and a little bit back to in 2023. I think for one, those numbers look that way simply because 23 and 24, this wasn't the number one defense. And with this team being the number one defense, what was the biggest proponent of them being so great? 3 and outs, right? Mm-hmm. Like they were forcing offense to get off the field at a high rate, especially in the first 3 quarters. And I think that can kind of, in many ways, skew the metrics, advanced numbers on CJ Stroud seemingly having a better year in 25 than 24 and 20, or getting close to 2023. So I wanted to point that out. But also, I look at the situation with Houston, and I know, MC, you do a great job of driving the show, but I want to take a step back and ask you, like, flat out, based off of what you know, is Gerard Johnson, or has Gerard Johnson shown you anything through CJ Stroud? Because that first year, he came right out of college.
College, yeah.
That first year, before that, Gerard was in Philly, I believe.
Yes.
And so, and then after that, we see Jalen Hurts going to have a 2-year stretch of playing some of his football without Gerard Johnson. Mm-hmm. So do you think what we've seen from Stroud and the decline, was Gerard Johnson, like, is he really a problem?
I don't know if he matters anymore. Like, you know, you're around the, football, I guess, more than I am at this point, but like, and this kind of equates back to, for me, my baseball background. We see this in baseball all the time where hitting coaches don't have a connection with hitters, like, because they got their own guys on the side. Right. How does that affect this world now? Like, okay, you can have a great quarterback coach. That's my question. Is the quarterback always listening to him because he's working with somebody outside of the organization majority of the year? That's my question.
I think in this case, who he's been working with, who's been in his ear, and a lot of times what they've been mentioning since high school, they've had a relationship, was Gerard Johnson. I would look at that question and say, because of that relationship, were things worse off with him listening to Johnson instead of listening to what the actual new coaching staff was asking of him? This is speculation to me. I'm not sure. I can't say yes or no. There isn't a definitive response, but I can only point to going based off of 2024, and you hear things like Chris Strausser was 1 foot in, 1 foot out, the different voices in the room, and You look at the defensive intensity and the offensive line doesn't match that, nowhere near close to it. And then this upcoming year, they get him out, Strasser out, they promote Cole Popovich. And in many ways, and this is one thing we haven't talked about, like in many ways, I look at Titus Howard, who is a prodigy of Larry Tunsil. Larry Tunsil, smooth dude, cool dude. You know, he Ferragamo, right? And I look at how Titus Howard was brought up under Larry Tunsil, and then I see this year, in many ways, this was Titus Howard's best year. And in many ways, Titus Howard was much more physical, in my opinion. And so I look at how voices matter. Voices matter. We see the difference in Titus Howard this past year, and I think for Houston getting Jerry Slapinski, who Jonathan Alexander mentioned, is expected to have a higher role, and also the communication between Stroud, Kaylee, and Jerry being on the same page, that could lead to a better quarterback because that quarterback now has a better understanding of what the ask is.
All I know is we need football games to get back here soon, so we have an idea of if this is going to work out or not. It's going to be a long offseason of wondering. There's more layers to this Stroud thing. We'll get to them here in just a brief second on the Locked On Texans Squad show. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered to win a shot to the NBA Finals, a trip for two. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole experience. You might be already looking at that board and saying, hey, I like this team or that team or whatever to make a deep run. Perfect time to lock it in right now with FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. I got to put the squad back on here for it to be a squad show for those of you watching. Hi, squad. Michael Connor, Stan Norfleet, and John Hickman. Welcome back here on the Locked On Texans Squad show. If you're watching live on YouTube, thank you as always. If you're new to this channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button. And then, of course, you can get this podcast for free anywhere that you get your podcast. Go and search Locked On Texans. You have this show, and you have John's daily show, and John is up in Indianapolis for the Combine, so I know he's going to be pumping out plenty of stuff. There's been plenty of guys up there that have said they've already met with the Texans. I've noticed a trend. There's a lot of tight ends that have said that already. So I would expect a tight end at some point in the draft this year.
Talked to Tanner Kozel today during player interviews. Kenyon Sadiq, the Oregon tight end, he had a crowd. And so because of that, with everybody over there waiting for him, I said, you know what? I've talked to Tanner before. I've covered him at U of H. Let me go chop it up with him. And while I'm chopping it up with him, King and Sadiq never shows, I think, but they had a lot of communication errors with some of the prospects today. Many players were a little bit later to the podium. All that said, Tanner Kozel did confirm that he met with the Houston Texans at the Senior Bowl. He loved to come back to play for the city of Houston Cougar. Dominated in the Texas Bowl against LSU. He even brought up a play where he talked about the communication with his quarterback led to a touchdown during that game. And so it's some tight end prospects out here. Wide receivers are popping off tomorrow. Offensive line Saturday. It's going to be fun.
It's going to be fun. Stan, before we went to the next layer of this Stroud thing, I did want to give you a chance if you wanted to respond since we had a little bit of the connection issue there. If you had anything to say in response to John from last segment.
Yeah, again, sorry about the technical deal. I think that it's important to highlight when Nick Caley came here last season, Shplinski came with him. It was the only staffer that followed him from the Rams and came with him over here or pulled them from wherever Shplinski was from. So some of this makes me wonder, was this a year in the making? Was this the plan the whole time? Shplinski is thought to be Nick Caley's right-hand man. So I get it. It's like, look, Gerard Johnson is one of these things in here is not like the other, and it's Gerard Johnson. So let's remove that, and then we're going to see, can we do this New England Patriots, what is this now, 3.0? Bill O'Brien represented. Bill O'Brien had, like 2 cracks at it, and now here's the third rendition with Nick Caley. So I wonder if this is an error. Right now, offensively, I think it's tough to say that we trust the Houston Texans' decision-making from an offensive line standpoint, how they handled the Joe Mixon news all offseason, the lack of going to get a more talented running back when you knew what your offensive scheme was going to be predicated on dink and dunk and grinding football games out on the ground. It just offensively right now, they're a mess. And I feel like I'm going to use the term. But didn't they move on from like an assistant tight ends coach earlier in the offseason?
Jake Moreland.
And he was a tight end coach.
Yeah.
The head tight end coach. Yeah, so you move on from the tight end coach after Dalton Schultz has a pseudo career year, and then now you're moving on from Gerard Johnson. And I'm just like, why are we – the accountability is not being placed in the proper places. And I'll just stop.
So who are you – where does the accountability lie right now? Give me one name, Stan.
Number one, it's always at the top. Number one is D'Amico Ryans. Now, I'm glad you bring that up. I think from a personnel standpoint, when I follow and read the tea leaves, follow the breadcrumbs, I wonder if D'Amico Ryans is losing power over there. I do not believe Nick Caley was a D'Amico Ryans hire.
Me neither.
And I don't know that moving on from Gerard Johnson is a D'Amico Ryans decision.
I will give you this to counter that real quick. Nick Caserio did say today that D'Amico Ryans has completely built that defense. I will give you that. That's his words.
Right. D'Amico built the defense, but what about the other half?
Yeah.
That's
what about the other 11?
I think moving on from Jake Moreland, who was brought in the same year that D'Amico was brought in, Gerard Johnson as well. I do think those are moves that D'Amico Ryans may have signed off. No, let me not say may. I do think those are moves that D'Amico Ryans signed off on. And I do think those are moves that in many ways D'Amico Ryans may have initiated. Now, where I would be in agreement with you is the replacements. Like now you got substitutes taking over the class full time now, right? So
make it make sense.
D'Amico said at the end of the year,
John Carroll, that's how it makes sense.
And Patriots.
They're going to evaluate everything. A week later, we got Jake Moreland's out. A month later, we got, Gerard Johnson's out. He said that last year, and shortly after, we get Bobby Slorka's out. I think this past, how everything turned out last year for Houston with the offensive struggles, the lack of offense in the playoffs, especially in the divisional round, being so close and knowing that this was the best chance for Houston to have, the easiest path, by the way, to get to a Super Bowl that following week you take on Bo Nix. Maybe you get a rematch in the Super Bowl with the Seattle Seahawks from early in the year. I think that left such a bad taste in D'Amico's mouth that I don't give a damn what our relationship is. As a coach, I have to see this thing through because, number one, as a black coach, I may not get another shot to do it.
That part. That's a piece of it.
Number two, as a leader of men, how can I hold players accountable if I'm not holding my coaching staff accountable? Right? So I think he's signing off on these deals. Now, where the new guys come in at, that's all Caserio.
We got one other name that we have not said. If this looks a lot different if you're pushing Gerard Johnson out, and I know fan favorite Case Keenum, right? Case Keenum in 2023 is backing up C.J. Stroud and Davis Mills, and he's helping C.J. get integrated into the offense. Now, we saw a former Texas quarterback, my former teammate.
Did it happen again?
Yeah, we need to get Stan in the Toro district.
Yeah, we got to get him in the Toro district for sure. Pop back in when you get the connection right there, Stan. The other element, I keep bringing it up, jokingly. Like, honestly, is it? I know we've talked about it before, but like, at what point does it get a little bit exhausting? The Patriots, John Carroll, all those. I was about to say a word I shouldn't say. I know you did. That's how I feel. You want to know how I really feel about it? Now you know. Because I'm tired of it. Are you tired of it yet?
I am because I think when we view C.J. Stroud, we don't view him from a athletic standpoint. Like, he's not Lamar, he's not Cam. Mm-hmm. I think athletically, he's not Andrew Luck. Like some of the things that Josh Allen, some of the things that make those quarterbacks really great is the athletic ability that they bring to the game. Don't think they're Stroud. And so in many ways, when we talk about quarterback ceiling and we remove athletic ability, there are two, three quarterbacks that we equate those quarterbacks to on the high end of their career, like what their quarterback could potentially be. Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, Tom Brady. Those were not uber athletic quarterbacks, right? Even Big Ben was a very athletic quarterback. In many ways, Eli Manning's ability to stand in the pocket and move around, his athletic ability to do that. So I think when you draft a CJ Stroud and then Nick Caserio's there, and then there's a couple of Patriot guys in the building, and over the course of the years, they keep sprinkling more guys. I think internally it is we can win a Super Bowl without an athletic quarterback. Mm-hmm. And we've seen it happen many times in our heyday with the ultimate non-athletic quarterback who's the greatest of all time in Tom Brady. So when you are around things that work, typically you use it as a reference, as a pull back from and use it to, be better at whatever your job is. And I think they just can't help themselves to try to remake and recreate what helped Tom Brady get to the level he was at, especially the back half of his Patriot career, post-2010.
I think it's great and all, but we keep doing the same thing.
I agree, though.
You're saying all that, and you're just like, you know what the difference is? They had Tom Brady, and you know who else is? You know who's Tom Brady? Literally nobody else.
Nobody else. Yeah, he's the guy that immediately goes win a championship with Tampa Bay after leaving the Patriots the first year, right? Yeah. But I think for Texas fans, and MC, you're a homer. So
yeah,
for 20 plus years, it feels like the Texans have been chasing that ghost.
Oh yeah,
trying to do what New England has done, and I think for Texan fans, you have every right to be pissed off at that.
To me, it's the wrong ghost. The ghost that you should. They had it right for a minute. The system, the Kubiak system, coming from Denver, coming from that's to me, that's the tree you want to be on, because that one's been mimicked all over the place, and that one works. This one's never been mimicked the same way.
It does work. But then you'll get to that conversation of similar to somewhat of chasing the Patriot way, like they're chasing the Shanahan way.
They're all chasing somebody.
Everybody's chasing somebody, and half the league has a Shanahan coach now, or Kubiak coach, and either you got the Kubiak last name, or you and McVay were drinking buddies, in your heyday. So, like either way the Texans go, I feel like in 2026, the conversation should be viewed the same, in my opinion. The only difference is for Houston, they've been chasing that same ghost for 20 plus years. As to where now, if you get a Kubiak or Shanahan tree coach, there's really no difference because you're expecting the same thing from those coaches. And from a front office standpoint, how they've been moving and operating, they've been doing everything similar to what they may have done in New England. So the Houston Texans all around, whether it's the New England way or the Shanahan way, you can view it as a lack of identity.
That's true. I think that's one of the things that I've always struggled with the most is that they don't have an identity as a franchise. They've always had somebody else's identity and not their own. And there's a difference now with D'Amico Ryans, obviously, but it's still
a defensive-led team.
Yeah, it's still chasing something else. There is another layer to this that we haven't gotten to yet, and it was from Caserio today. I want to play the clip, and then I have a question based off of a different draft, not this draft, that I want to ask you guys here in a brief moment on the Locked on Texans Squad show. Workplace chaos, deadlines stack up, inbox overflowing, and one position you have to fill still having, sitting there open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed, sponsored jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for, skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping for the right candidate to stumble across your post. Here's a stat that says it all. In the minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching, more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Like I said, spend less time searching. It's a huge one, and more time actually interviewing those candidates who check all those boxes, which means less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored jobs credit to help you get your premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. The Texans squad show continues. Michael Connor, Stan Norfleet, and John Hickman. And like I said a few times, we've gotten into these shows. The C.J. Stroud layers to this are going to go and go and go. Thank goodness. I mean, look, it's not a horrible thing because we were going to have a whole month basically to get ready for the draft, which the combine's going on now. Real quick today, guys, the Nick Caserio media tour continued. He was on the Pat McAfee show, and you're going to play the clip here. It's about 1:20 of the question and the answer. And I guess my guess is you guys are going to find exactly what we're looking for in this answer.
You guys are trading C.J. Stroud. Are you doing that here or when?
You guys must have listened to my press conference the other
day.
You
caught him
moronic. Sorry to disappoint everybody.
Okay, so let's talk about that. So he obviously doesn't play his best ball down the stretch, plays a lot of really good defenses. You guys had an incredible defense. The reason why having an incredible defense is good is because you win in a game. The reason why it might not be good is because if your quarterback doesn't play good, all of a sudden Trent Dilfer gets brought up. Like, hey, well, this team was only winning because of the defense. We think C.J. Stroud's special. We love C.J. Stroud. We know you feel the same way. Did you expect the conversation or the narrative to potentially build that he might move on? And kind of how do you handle that with C.J. himself?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, try not to pay too much attention to it. But if you feel like you have to address something, I felt like that was the appropriate thing to do. I mean, he's our quarterback. He's played a lot of good football for us, to your point. He's had some good games. He's had some games where, look, all of us, I mean, there's some ups and downs, things you have to deal with. So glad he's our quarterback and, glad he's going to be here for next season. And we want him here. And I think all players learn. I don't want to speak for you guys, but, after each season, go back. What are some of the things that did well? What are some of the areas you can improve on? I think sometimes when you just accentuate the negative and you're just taking a microcosm of one particular game, look, we didn't play our best game. The Patriots played better than we did, and that's the way it goes. So, I mean, all of us in the offseason are trying to improve, trying to find ways and things that we can do better, and that's where the focus is going to be.
Okay, I love that you're focusing on the positive.
So, there it is. I'm guessing, Stan, you know exactly the part that needs to be discussed here.
See, this is starting to look intentional. And the part that should catch everybody's attention is when the general manager refuses to address the franchise quarterback beyond the next upcoming season, 2026. He's been on a local tour here on the flagship station for the Texans. He said it in front of everybody at the Combine the other day. And now he's on Pat McAfee show on the Four Letter Network, which is one of their premier pieces of programming for content. And his message has been consistent. In one breath, he's saying they support Stroud. He's our guy. In that same breath, he refuses to acknowledge there are decisions coming up in the next 90 days about the future of Stroud as early as 2027. I think this is him talking to David Morgetta, CJ's agent. I think this is intentional because let me say something. If it has happened to me before in my broadcasting career.
We are just not having a day with Stan here. Stan, try it again, man. John, your thoughts on him not saying beyond 2026, basically. He says the words after we want him here. Are we reading too much into this, or is this an actual thing?
I don't think we are. I think we are. I think it's how we're reading into it. I think it's appropriate. But a lot of that. So for a general manager that won't be here past 2026, I mean, like the extension, I'm looking it up now because I want to make sure that I got it right. But it was a 6-year deal, correct?
Correct. This should be the last year of the deal.
The last year. for Caserio, and so
maybe he's only saying it because he's not going to be here.
That's what I'm getting at. Can he put a definitive yes past 2026 with the McNairs, who rightfully so, they haven't given him an extension.
Well, how about this? If Nick Caserio's gone after this year, does that say more about CJ Stroud's power or D'Amico Ryan's power?
Neither.
You don't think it would be either one of them would have anything to do with him being out of here and not getting a contract?
No,
I mean, look, his record is there's some draft misses. We know that. But overall, as a GM, you got 3 consecutive, playoff appearances and 3 double-digit win seasons. Not like he has a bad record as a GM. There was a bad years leading into it. They also did that on purpose. But, it's not like he's been the worst GM in the sport.
No, he hasn't. But I think, and I'm hard on Caserio, but I think if we survey all 32 teams, I think Caserio will come in right around the back half of after 5. So maybe 8, 9.
The back 5, the last 5, really?
So we look at the top. I think he'd be top 10. I'm saying after 5, the back half of that.
Okay. Yeah, I was about to say, I think he's somewhere between 15 and 10, probably.
I think it wouldn't be an indication on who has the power between the quarterback and D'Amico.
Okay.
And let me be frank when I say this. I don't think Stroud has power to get the general manager out. I think if we want to look at who holds the power, we can look at D'Amico Ryans. But I think for the McNairs, they would probably just sit down and view everything from a standpoint of, has it been enough? They got the Toro district coming in a couple of years. What do we talk about after that? Eventually, at some point, upgrading or getting a new stadium matters.
Yeah.
Right. And so right now, they are, from what we've seen and what they're kind of virtually telling us, they are focused on being a better franchise.
Right.
No matter what you do outside the actual game of football, if you're not winning or if you continue to run into that ceiling where it feels like Bill O'Brien couldn't get past it, Gary Kubiak couldn't get past it, and now we can't get past it, then they're going to make some changes. They're going to make some changes. The difference is in terms of power for the McNairs. Hey, you know what, D'Amico? You did give us a number 1 defense, top 12 defense. You got your defense has scored more points in the playoffs than the offense. Why has that been? Because since you've been drafted, aside from Derek Stingley the year prior and Jalen Petrie, since you've been drafted, Will Anderson, Caleb Bullock, Amari Lassiter, you were able to get us Azeez Al-Shaair. We were able to get Danielle Hunter. You were the reason why Jalen Petrie got paid and his progression as a player. Defensively, what we've gotten in 2025, going into 2026, aside from Stingley alone, because I think he's just an anomaly of being who he was going to be regardless, and thank God he's not in that Lovie Smith system anymore.
Yeah.
Players that Houston has brought in, the coaching staff on the defensive side that Houston has brought in under D'Amico Ryans, that has led to Houston being talked about and regarded as one of the better defenses in the last 15 years. Obviously, it won't be remembered because they didn't get to the Super Bowl. But we can't blame D'Amico on that defense. Now, what we can do is Juice Scruggs, Jared Patterson, Kenyon Green, Laken Tomlinson, City So. I know I'm missing a couple of offensive linemen.
Cam Robinson.
Cam Robinson, right? Christian Kirk, right? Running back situation. Those are offensive issues that you would want your general manager to either replace, upgrade, or get some of these players back that were, meaningful for your offense. I mean, Stephon Diggs, maybe, but his legal issues, I think by the time we would have gotten to this year, on the field it would have mattered, but we would be looking at the same conversation. Is he going to be a Houston Texan the following year, similar to what's being talked about in New England right now? So that's why I think if the extension isn't passed out to Nick Caserio, it isn't between a power struggle. It would be just a McNair simply assessing his role and saying, man, we really appreciate you for pulling out the dungeon. The dark time when we lost Bob McNair and Cal McNair had his thing going on, and we saw Hannah take a more prominent role and stepped up and helped us get
Deshaun Watson scenario.
Austin, where he got that massive return back. We appreciate all of that. But we are at this ceiling right now, and it feels like the nuances of what some of the things you're doing is holding us back. And when they want to be a better franchise and bring more to the Texans with everything outside of football, football is still the number one business. And if you lose in that business, all of that other stuff ain't going to matter.
That's true. Again, guys, I apologize for the tech. I don't know what's going on today. It's really bad over here today. So Caserio knows what he's doing. He knows what he's saying. He knows from the moment he started saying CJ is the quarterback for 2026 and he won't comment beyond that. He knew that folks like us and others were going to ask questions. And he still has not changed his tune. That tells me it's purposeful. Now, who is he talking to? He's talking to CJ and his camp. Perhaps he's also talking to the fan base. Hey, don't get comfortable with this boy. Or when and you know what? We haven't looked at it from this angle. John, you mentioned it earlier in this program. At the end of the year, DeMeco Ryan said everything is under evaluation. We just took for granted. Maybe DeMeco was telling him, my quarterback is not giving me the vibes that I'm looking for. So how much of this is Caserio trumpeting what DeMeco is feeling? How much of this is Caserio negotiating respectfully with David Morgetta and CJ? Because you got to understand, David Morgetta's there in Indianapolis. David Morgetta watches the Pat McAfee show. David Morgetta listens to the flagship station of a guy. CJ Stroud is in line or potential to get top of the market quarterback money, given that he has a better resume in the postseason than Dak Prescott. So you think David Morgetta isn't listening and reading what's being said and read about CJ Stroud? Of course he is. Now, David Morgetta may be saying to Nick Caserio, hey, look, man, you said it once and we heard you. You keep saying it 2, 3, 4, 5 more times. Now I have to take it as disrespectful. How contentious can this thing get between the Morgetta CJ Stroud camp and what's going on in the organization? I think the Texans are playing this wrong. You should be looking for every opportunity. You know the temperament of your guy. We've seen him be extremely emotional. Why would you add fuel to the fire? And I'll say that for somebody else when they want to get into some of those details about some things going on with the quarterback, the cutting the hair, let's
talk about that too.
There are some psychological, what they call it, a psychoanalysis.
Let's get him a damn sports psychologist.
I'm sure they have people over there, but what I'm saying is Caserio is exacerbating that with this just 2026 talk. All he has to do is say CJ Stroud is our quarterback. Next question. That's it.
Well, what we talked about is technically Caserio isn't on the contract past 2026 either.
Well, I heard that part. But he still represents the best interest of the organization. So if Callan, Hannah, and DeMeco and Caserio, when they sit down and have their prosciutto and some some silver oak Cabernet
and some
Opus, and when they sitting down doing the wealthy thing, hey man, where are we at with CJ? And then let's get all on the same page about what we're going to say about CJ, knowing his personality and temperament. You want to look for opportunities to bring the pressure down on your franchise quarterback, not ratchet it up.
You know what, to that point, Stan, y'all remember the S2 test conversation?
Cognition test, yeah.
So
cognition test, yeah.
Is CJ Stroud actually dumb? No, I'm kidding.
No, we talked to a reporter who covers Ohio State during the draft process around that time. And then we got into off the camera conversation. And what he pointed out was, in many ways, the S2 test was overblown for CJ Stroud.
Mm-hmm.
But he said that isn't the real issue. He's banged heads with some of the coaches here at Ohio State. They just win so much, and he's leading a prolific offense, so it's not getting talked about a lot. Boom, 2023 coming out of Ohio State, he wins Rookie of the Year in terms of TD to interception ratio. Is that not the greatest, if not one of the greatest of all time for a rookie? Or I think for NFL quarterback altogether, maybe. The offense had great moments where you see him throw for over 400 yards and 5 TDs, similar to what he was doing at Ohio State. And so a lot of that is swept under the rug, right? Following year, the year starts off a little shaky. He has some moments. Look at the New England game, but then they lose the Detroit Lions game. Look at C.J. Stroud's play in that game. And then the New York Jets game. And then now the offense is under a much bigger microscope because maybe not for a lot of people. Maybe not. I don't know how you guys were covering around that time. Said I believe you were still on 790 around that time. But that is where myself and who I was working with around that time, we looked at the situation with C.J. Stroud and was like, hey, man, whoa. Your mechanics and how you're playing is completely off compared to the previous year. And the offense started to have much more of a conversation around it as the week started to go on because now it's a real problem. And everybody wanted to blame Bobby Sloyd. And then that's where we hear, well, they're not really on the same page. Where, that story come out of draft where that first year, C.J. Stroud said, this is how we do it. And Bobby Sloyd, I don't care how y'all do it. Like these things are now starting to matter as to where in 2026, now we're talking about it here on February 26th, where it isn't the S2 test that should have concerned everybody. It's Stroud's response to coaching that for many people, maybe inside or around the organization, may feel like that's what's holding a lot of what the progression should be back from C.J. Stroud in the offense.
MC, I know we got to do the thing. I just want to add to everything that John just said. Remember now, when Slower got fired, that's when we started to hear, we're going all the way back to CJ's top 30 visit here to Houston. Him and Slower,
that's what
there was some bad energy. They were not vibing from the word go. And I think it got a little worse. Now, 2023 was so good to everybody that it kind of delayed it. And then when they hit that proverbial bump in the road in 24, that's when it just came out somewhat forcing D'Amico's hand. I just wanted to add that piece with Bobby Sloyd going all the way back to the top 30 interview.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. And I've got my parting shot ready already. I'll be giving that to you guys here before we know it. And it involves C.J. Stroud. But I do want to ask the final question. And we didn't get to anything else that we wanted to talk to other tonight. We got another show this weekend. And we're going to get to that. There is one more layer to this of the C.J. Stroud thing that I have to ask you guys before we get out of here on the Locked On Texans Squad show. As the new year gets going, a lot of people are, trying to simplify their routines, and dinner is a big one. Between busy work days, cold winter nights, and packed schedules, having an easy, reliable dinner plan makes a huge difference. That's where HomeChef comes in. HomeChef takes the stress out of cooking by delivering fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door with easy-to-follow recipes that actually taste great. They're rated number 1 by users of other meals kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease. It's easy to see why. There's over 30 weekly options, including family-sized meals and different dietary choices. Like I said, the recipes are simple. They feel elevated, even restaurant quality with dishes co-created by chefs like Gordon Ramsay. For a limited time, HomeChef is offering my listeners 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/lockedon. That's homechef.com/lockedon for 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Must be an active subscriber to receive free dessert for life. All right, our final few minutes of Locked On Texans Squad show. Michael Connor, Stan Norfleet, and John Hickman. All right, guys, with all this Stroud stuff and that thing that Nick Caserio keeps doing, which is only mentioning next season when it comes to answering him being the quarterback here, is there any element of this? And I heard Albert Breer throw this out there earlier today on his Sports Illustrated podcast that, hey, he has. There's a lot of teams that are gearing up already for the 2027 draft that has a lot of quarterbacks in it. Is there any element of this that is involved around that 2027 draft?
Before I answer that, I know we talked about C.J. Stroud mental ability and mental state, and if he needs help. I do want to say I'm an advocate of making sure he gets whatever he needs mentally. We just saw what happened with Rondale Moore. These athletes are more than players; they're people too. So I know he's going on somewhat of a spiritual journey. He's been hinting at it and talking about it for the last 18 months. As C.J. Stroud maybe cutting his locks was a way to kind of feel a release. I've been there before as a former person with dreads. Y'all may have not known that, but
never seen with dreads.
Outside of the game, whatever help he needs, I pray that he gets it. Now, flat out, there's not a quarterback in the 2027 draft class that I think is better than C.J. Stroud.
Agreed.
Out of college.
Agreed.
I think the best quarterback could potentially be
Rondale. What's the boy in Oregon?
I'm not big on Moore. I think Oregon quarterbacks benefit from the system that they play in. They get to the league, and many times outside of Herbert, there isn't a lot of success there. I like Arch. This is not me being a homer. I think Arch did some things in the second half of last season that really stood out on tape, and I think he's going to build on it. They did a great job of bringing in talented receivers and rebuilding an offensive line. All that being said,
watch my boy Texas Tech this year. By the way, sorry,
I saw C.J. Stroud do some things at Ohio State that I don't think I really saw from another Ohio State quarterback from a passing perspective. Obviously, they had playmakers everywhere on that offense, right? But you still need a quarterback that can get those playmakers the ball. And Stroud was able to do that at a high level. And so for me, if I'm the Houston Texans, unless this upcoming year some of these guys take a huge leap in their game, Stroud is better than most of these players, and he's already NFL ready. There's no need to look towards the 2027 draft class for a quarterback.
My thing is, if you're already thinking about 27, that means you've already made your mind that you're going to move on from C.J. Stroud. So go ahead and move on from him now before his value diminishes more.
Does it mean that, or does it mean you're at least looking at it? It is a possibility because you still have control over Stroud no matter what.
Right. You got another 3 years, 3 seasons after 2026. You got the 5th-year option, and essentially you got 4 more seasons. The 5th-year option, and then you can franchise him the maximum of 3 times. Now, it very rarely ever gets there because that franchise tag number for quarterbacks gets extremely high, especially if Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes get ready to redo their deals, knowing that the franchise tag is the average of the top 5 salaries at every position. So it's going to get expensive. But my thing is, if you have entertained in your brain one iota, hey, is CJ the guy past 2026? Then you do need to start looking at what is the compensation package that you can yield now. This is a weaker quarterback class. Many are saying Mendoza may be the only first-round quarterback this year. We know what the free agent class looks like. Somebody told me Malik Willis is out here about to cash in on like 40 million a year, some crazy. I'm like, man, what? So my thing is Stroud's value, regardless how those 2 playoff games went this year, Stroud's value is still higher than anything else on the market in the event that Joe Burrow stays in Cincinnati. So if you already started making decisions about potentially in 2027, then pick up the phone when people call you about Stroud. Do the deal now. The defense is good enough to keep you in games now. So maybe you try to pull a Sam Darnold and what Seattle did this year, whether that's Davis Mills, whether that's Kyler Murray, whether maybe it's Malik, maybe you go get somebody else that's not CJ. You get the capital back from CJ and you buffer everything else around him offensively, and then you're set to restart your clock, and the cover is fully stocked in 27 when you go get you a young rookie, and you start over. I'm not saying I would do that.
I know. I'm saying Joe Burrow and Dak Prescott are the only 2 quarterbacks I trade for from Houston. That's it.
I'm saying you wouldn't even have to trade. You wouldn't have to trade for a quarterback. Just flat out move CJ for resources if that's what you're going to do.
I'm sorry. I mean, like, if you get Joe Burrow, they're going to want a quarterback in return.
Oh, yeah.
If you get a Dak Prescott, they're going to want something back in return.
That's not leaving. That's crazy.
You wouldn't want Dak in Houston?
I think Dak and CJ are the same thing. Neither one of them are going to pull everybody else with you and get you to the mountaintop.
Yeah, I think the problem.
Both of them. Go ahead, MC. I'm sorry.
I was going to say the Dak problem is that Dak has had so many offensive weapons and they've never elevated, ever.
I'm not going to say they never elevated. I'm going to say the team success in the postseason.
The team success has never been elevated, ever. And he's had weapons. Weapons.
Oh, no question. Yeah, it would be hard pressed. I mean, he's out there playing with Hall of Famers, and guys that are going to get Hall of Fame nods, all pros. I mean, he's out there with dudes. He's had more dudes than CJ has had. Mm-hmm. Now, different division, when you go out there with the star on your helmet, things change and all of that. But I just, the way they are orchestrating the coaching staff, the personnel, and the communication about the quarterback, those three aren't on the same page. And those three don't match how consistent things are on defense. They had one disruptor on defense, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, CeeDee, and they got his butt out of there in 3 weeks. DeMeco's entire tenure here, that defensive side of the ball has been buttoned up. Now, they were outstanding. This is the best they've ever been this year. But defense, we all know, isn't the problem. How come this thing looks such like a dumpster fire on offense? And to me, I have to look at the general manager and I have to look at the offensive play callers. And blaming the quarterback coaches, like, that's just, what are we doing?
We're getting down to, you got nobody else left to blame until after this season. If he does it again, the public blame will come down on the quarterback more than anybody else. All right, guys, you want to get your parting shots in here?
Go ahead, John.
I'm not at home, so I don't have my shot glasses, but I do want to say, in regards to C.J. Stroud, man, I bring it back to, does he need a psychologist specialist or whatever it is he can be provided? I hope he's taking the next couple of months of his life to really reflect on what matters to him. I hear Jaden Ivey talk. I remember how A.J. Griffin talked and how those guys really towards the end of A.J. Griffin's career, and we may be at this point right now with Jaden Ivey, who was just traded from Detroit, and he said the OJI is dead. But they also really leaned heavily in their faith in a lot of their rhetoric and messages before, when it feels like it's time for them, they're going to step away. For Stroud, I think it's a little different. But if he's leaning that way, I just want whatever Stroud feels is best for himself. That said, when he gets his mind right, got some football to play next year, brother. I believe in you, right? But he has to be in a space where come July, nothing else matters. Obviously, faith matters above all, but football is number one.
My parting shot is the Toro district. A lot of people up this week up there in the Cypress area. And when you look at the renderings, when you look at the site, I'm very excited about what that can mean to the city, what that does for the Texans organization. And the finished product, I think, is going to be outstanding. I think they've got the right people involved. When you got the Howard Hughes group, of course, the Texans, you bring in Mike Tolman, formerly of Legends, which is an extension of the Cowboys and Yankee and kind of a third-party venture there. Very experienced in matters like this in terms of facilities. And when I think about the versatility at what that 22-acre site is going to offer, this is what a billion-dollar operation should look and feel like. It is no disrespect to the situation over there at Kirby and the Houston Methodist Training Center. It has served the Texans well. I've always thought it was very unique to be able to walk across Kirby on that sky bridge. I've done it a time or two in my day, but it's time. The organization is at a new level. I do believe you have a franchise quarterback, and if this thing is going to continue to ascend, and the overall valuation of the franchise, Cal and Hannah are making hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions, in this deal by acquiring this space, partnering with the city, and moving things out there. It was the right move. It's a little different. I didn't think we'd be going up 290. I thought maybe we'd be going out I-10 West, but nonetheless, it looks really cool. And I'm excited about what that's going to mean for the area.
They need to give us a call, y'all. We need to host some Saturday pre-shows when the Toro district is popping, right?
I mean, yeah. It's clear they're going to do everything out there. I mean, it's going to be youth sports. They say they can set it up for 21 volleyball courts. They've got 3 football fields. They can get 16,000 people, whether it be for high school football or training camp practices. Training camp will be the best it's ever been. When this thing is ready to go by the fall of 2029 is what I'm hearing. So I think this is a win-win all the way around. It's going to be a drive. Definitely going to be a drive. But I think it'll be well worth it once we get there.
Carpool.
Yeah, like you said, it elevates the franchise, which is the most important thing. Now I want to go ahead and give my final thought on CJ Stroud here. I'm with you. The mental part of this, get it right. The only thing I will say, and you guys brought it up about not being able to work with people or bashing heads with coaches, and this has been a thing that's been around. If that's truly the case, I hope that there's somebody in his life that's knocking him on the side of the head and saying, hey, man, you got to cut it out because you got to act like an adult at some point. You are an adult at this point. You're never going to work 100% with people that you like in any industry, no matter what you do. Mm-hmm. I experience this on a daily basis. I get in an airplane. I got to fly.
What you mean?
Half the time, I don't like the person that's next to me. You know,
I thought you were talking about us, me and John.
No. I like you guys. I'm talking about you get in airplanes.
The hell you mean?
You don't vibe with for a single second, but you know what you do. You have to figure it out. And if he has a problem figuring it out, then that tells me more about him as the man. Like, you can say all these other things. If you can't be an adult and work as an adult and work with people you don't like on a daily basis, then I've got a little bit of a lack of respect for that kind of attitude. That's just me.
That's the Houston sports radio MC talking right there.
Yeah.
He kind of snapped back in the. You okay, man? You all right?
No, I worked with somebody in that radio game too for their Sean. No, I said his name. No, I didn't say. I was gonna say Stan knows who I'm talking about. We will be back this weekend for the Locked On.
Good time to get out.
John will be at the combine. We'll have plenty to get from him. We hope you guys have a great rest of your Thursday. Thanks for joining us on the Locked On Texans Squad.